Okay, let's unpack this. We often talk about mindset, resilience, these big ideas,
Yeah.
but they can feel a bit, I don't know, abstract sometimes.
Right. Like they're just philosophical concepts.
Exactly. So what happens when we get really practical?
Yeah.
When we talk about actually physically remodeling the brain inside our heads?
Well, that's what's so exciting about the material you brought us. It moves past just, motivation. It's like a scientific blueprint.
A blueprint for intentional change based on neuroplasticity.
Precisely. The mission here isn't just believing we can change. It's about understanding the actual mechanics, how specific thoughts, practice thoughts, create physical structures in the brain.
Yeah, that's the core of this deep dive. The listener sources detailed 3 really powerful, actionable techniques. Positive self-talk, repeating empowering thoughts, and then awareness and control of those negative patterns.
Simple sounding, almost.
Right. Almost like mental mantras. But we need to get into the science, the why. Why does thinking a certain way consistently, literally, change your physical brain?
Okay, so the key concept here, the one that really turned neurology on its head, is neuroplasticity.
Which wasn't always the accepted view, was it?
Not at all. For centuries, the adult brain was seen as fixed, rigid. What you got was what you got. Done deal.
Deterministic, basically.
Oh, exactly. But neuroplasticity shows the brain has this remarkable lifelong ability to reorganize itself. It forms new neural connections, strengthens old ones. It's constantly adapting.
So it's dynamic. It's editing its own wiring based on what we feed it.
That's a great way to put it. You're not just a passive recipient of your brain structure. You're actively involved in building it. You're the architect.
Okay, so we're the architects.
Yeah.
What's the main tool we're using? What's the mechanism behind these techniques we're discussing?
The core mechanism driving all 3 is synaptic plasticity. Think of the junctions between your neurons, the synapses.
The connection points.
Right. Synaptic plasticity is their ability to get stronger or weaker over time. And what determines that? How often and how intensely they're used.
Okay, so activity level matters.
Critically, when you repeatedly activate a specific connection with a thought or an action, it doesn't just get used. It physically upgrades itself. Chemically, too.
So this explains how a thought, something seemingly intangible, can become actual brain architecture.
Precisely. That sustained mental effort translates into physical change at the synaptic level. That's the foundation we need to understand first. So, before we even get into positive self-talk or managing negative thoughts, we have to talk about the absolute foundation.
Which is?
Repetition, practice, consistency, whatever you're to call it. It's non-negotiable if you want to leverage neuroplasticity.
So just having one positive thought isn't enough.
Not even close. Think of it like this. A single thought is like one car driving down a potential new road. The brain barely notices.
It needs traffic.
It needs heavy traffic consistently over time. That tells the brain, okay, this pathway is important, invest resources here, pave this road. Otherwise, it stays a faint track in the mud.
That really resonates. It feels like that's where most people stumble with these kinds of techniques.
Oh.
The idea seems simple, think positive, but actually doing it consistently. That's the hard part.
It is hard. And there's a neurological reason why. You're basically asking your brain to build a new highway right next to an old, super efficient one that it's used for years.
The old negative pathway.
Exactly. That old pathway is fast, requires less energy, it's the default. To build a new one, you need that high-frequency stimulation. Repeatedly activating the new pathway triggers a whole cascade of changes to strengthen those connections.
And this is where that famous phrase comes in, right? Neurons that fire together, wire together.
That's the catchy summary, yes. But let's unpack what wiring together actually means, what's happening physically.
Yeah, let's get into the nitty-gritty.
Okay, so a key process is called long-term potentiation, LTP. Fancy term, but it basically means a persistent strengthening of synapses because of recent patterns of high activity.
Strengthening the connection.
Right. Imagine 2 neurons trying to communicate across that synapse. At first, maybe the signal's weak, like a whisper. But if you stimulate that pathway again and again, intensely, the receiving neuron physically changes. It becomes a better listener.
How does it change? Like what actually happens chemically or structurally?
Okay, so when you repeat a thought, the first neuron releases neurotransmitters, especially one called glutamate, lots of it, if the firing is frequent.
Okay.
That glutamate causes the second neuron, the receiving one, to let in a flood of calcium ions. Calcium is like a crucial internal signal.
A trigger.
Exactly. That calcium influx triggers a bunch of downstream effects inside the cell. It basically shouts, hey, this connection is important. Make it stronger. Make it permanent.
Wow. So it's not just a temporary boost in signal. It's ordering construction materials.
That's a perfect analogy. It is ordering construction. The receiving neuron starts building more receptors for glutamate. Imagine upgrading from a tiny antenna to a massive satellite dish farm.
So it gets much more sensitive to the signal next time.
Much more. And even more visually, it triggers the growth of new dendritic spines. Dendrites are those branch-like extensions on a neuron.
Yeah.
And the spines are the tiny little bumps on them where the synapses actually form. So repetition literally makes the neuron grow new physical connection points specifically for that thought or action.
That's incredible. So the wiring together is literal. You're growing new bits of brain structure.
You absolutely are. It's physical remodeling based on mental activity.
Okay, so let's connect this back. If I spend years thinking, I'm not good enough, I've built a superhighway for that thought, a really efficient, fast, negative circuit.
Deeply entrenched, low energy cost to activate.
So if I want to change that, maybe start repeating, I am capable and I learn quickly, I have to put in serious, consistent effort to build a competing highway.
Exactly. You're building a competing circuit, and initially it takes more effort. It feels unnatural because the old road is still right there, easy to slip back onto.
And the duration, the consistency, that's what determines if the new highway gets built and eventually becomes the default.
Duration and intensity, yes. It's like physical training, but for your brain circuits. Think about learning a complex skill, like playing an instrument or a sport.
Yeah, totally awkward at first.
Right. The neural pathways are weak, inefficient. But practice, consistent, focused repetition that strengthens the synapses via LTP, grows those dendritic spines, makes the whole process smoother, faster, more automatic.
Until you don't even have to think about it consciously.
Precisely. And the amazing thing the source material highlights is that your brain uses the exact same mechanisms, LTP, dendritic growth, for processing thoughts and beliefs as it does for learning motor skills.
So when you're practicing positive self-talk or challenging negative thoughts, you are literally training a mental muscle. And it needs reps. Consistent reps.
High-frequency reps, that's what drives the structural change. It's not metaphorical, it's biological.
And this explains habit formation too, right? Why breaking old habits and building new ones feels so hard initially.
Absolutely. You're fighting against those old, established neural pathways. They fire automatically. The new habit requires conscious effort to activate its weak new circuit. It's energetically expensive at first.
But stick with it.
Stick with it, keep repeating the new action or thought, and you reinforce those new connections. You physically rewire your brain to make the new habit the easier, more automatic choice over time. Repetition isn't just helpful, it's the physical requirement for making that change stick.
Okay, so we've established repetition and LTP is the engine. Now let's look at the specific techniques from the sources. First up, positive self-talk and repeating empowering thoughts.
Right, these two are closely linked. They're about using language intentionally.
Like commands for the brain.
In a way, yes. It's using conscious linguistic input, what you say to yourself, either out loud or internally, to drive that repetition engine and target specific neural pathways you want to build or strengthen.
Okay, but here's a question I always have with affirmations and positive self-talk. What if it feels fake? Like, if I'm feeling really down and I repeat, I am joyful and energetic, doesn't my brain just kind of, call BS on that?
That's a really important point, and the sources do address the quality and structure of the self-talk, just robotically repeating something you deeply disbelieve.
Yeah, that's often not very effective.
So how do you make it work?
For neuroplasticity to really grab hold, the self-talk ideally needs a few things. It should be believable, or at least moving towards believable. It should have some emotional resonance, if possible. And critically, structure it in the present tense.
Present tense.
Right.
Why is that so important? I am confident versus I will be confident.
Think about how the brain processes that. I will be confident signals a future state. It doesn't demand immediate change or activation. The brain goes, okay, noted for later.
So no immediate firing required. Exactly. But when you state, I am confident and capable, even if you don't fully feel it yet, you are forcing the brain to engage with that concept right now. You're issuing a command to activate the neural circuits associated with confidence and capability in the present moment.
So even if it feels like acting initially, you're still making those specific neurons fire together. You're initiating the LTP process for the confidence circuit.
Precisely. It's about activating the desired pathway now. The feeling might follow the activation, not the other way around, especially at the start. The goal isn't instant magic. It's building a competing pathway that, through repetition, becomes stronger and more dominant than the old one.
Right, so if my default thought is, oh, I'll probably mess this up, that circuit is like a well-worn groove. It's fast.
Super efficient. Fires automatically.
But by consistently, intentionally activating the I handle challenges effectively circuit through self-talk, I'm using synaptic plasticity to build a new groove, a new default.
You're building a new neural freeway, basically. And eventually, with enough traffic, it becomes faster and more efficient than the old, anxiety-ridden back road. The brain starts to prefer the new route.
Okay, let's make it practical. Say someone listening struggles with social anxiety. The negative thought might be, everyone's judging me. What does effective repetition look like?
You need to target that specific belief. So instead of a vague, I'm okay, maybe something focused like I connect easily with others or I am calm and present in social situations.
Okay.
And then crucially, repeat it consistently, multiple times a day. Maybe say it out loud before entering a social setting. Visualize it, write it down. It's about that continuous reinforcement. It's an ongoing construction project.
The sources really emphasize integrating it into a routine, don't they? Not just doing it randomly.
Absolutely, because remember, LTP requires sustained high-frequency stimulation. If you only affirm something once a week, you're not giving those new synapses enough consistent activation to really stabilize and strengthen.
The connections sort of wither.
They can, yes. The technical term is long-term depression, or LTD, the weakening of synapses due to low activity. If you don't use the new pathway enough, the brain might prune it back. It's efficient. It doesn't maintain structures that aren't being used regularly.
So how long are we talking? How long does this consistent repetition need to go on before that new pathway starts feeling more, dominant or automatic?
That's the million-dollar question, and there's no single answer. Behavioral studies on habit formation give us clues. You often hear numbers like 21 days, but serious research suggests it's more like an average of 66 days for a simple new habit to become automatic, and the range is huge, like 18 to over 250 days.
Wow. Okay, so potentially months.
For reprogramming complex emotional or cognitive patterns, yes, think months rather than days or weeks. The brain rewards consistency over a sustained period. Sporadic effort just doesn't provide the signal needed for permanent structural change.
So the takeaway is commitment. Serious, dedicated commitment to the repetition. Using language and intention as tools to literally build a new neural reality.
That's exactly it. You're sculpting your brain with your thoughts.
Okay, this brings us to the third technique, which feels foundational. Here's where it gets really interesting, I think. Because before you build the new positive pathways, you kind of need to know what you're building over, right?
Absolutely. This third pillar, awareness and control of negative thinking patterns, is arguably the crucial first step. You can repeat positive affirmations all day long, but if you're unaware of the powerful, automatic negative thoughts running in the background, they can easily sabotage your efforts.
It's like trying to plant a garden without weeding first.
Perfect analogy. You have to identify the weeds, those deeply ingrained, often automatic negative circuits, before you can effectively cultivate the new plants.
But why are these negative patterns sometimes so hard to even notice? Don't we generally know when we're thinking negatively?
You'd think so, but often, no. These patterns are often the result of years, even decades of repetition. They might stem from past experiences, learned behaviors, maybe even trauma responses.
So they become automatic.
Highly automatic. They've become so efficient neurologically that they often bypass conscious awareness. They just fire. They color our perception of events, our emotional reactions, our decisions.
Without us even realizing that specific filter is active.
Exactly. We mistake the output of the pattern for objective reality. If you have a well-worn pathway that triggers anxiety or self-criticism in certain situations, that pathway has been reinforced thousands of times. It feels like the truth, not just a habitual thought pattern.
And the sources point out that letting these run unchecked can have real consequences, like chronic stress.
Definitely. Those deeply ingrained negative circuits, especially ones related to perceived threats or failures, can keep the body's stress response system on high alert. This leads to chronic stress, anxiety, maybe even impacting physical health over time. Without awareness, you're stuck on that negative autopilot.
So awareness is step one, pulling the thought out of the subconscious shadows and into the conscious light. Like saying, aha, there you are, catastrophizing thought.
Precisely. You have to catch it in the act. And then you need a strategy to deal with it.
This is where the source material points strongly towards cognitive restructuring, right? A core technique from cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT.
Yes, Cognitive restructuring is essentially applied neuroplasticity for negative thoughts. It's the action plan. It moves you from being a passive victim of your thoughts to an active manager and reframer. It's how you start dismantling that old negative circuit.
Okay, let's break down the process the sources describe. It seems to have three main parts. First is identifying the thought.
Right, the detective work. Becoming mindful of your internal dialogue and recognizing specific types of irrational or unhelpful thoughts. Often these fall into categories called cognitive distortions.
Cognitive distortions.
Yeah.
Like what?
Things like all or nothing thinking, seeing things in black and white, success or total failure, or catastrophizing, always expecting the worst-case scenario. Mind reading, assuming you know what others are thinking, usually negatively.
Got it. So naming the pattern helps.
It helps immensely. It depersonalizes it. You realize, oh, that's not me. That's just a catastrophizing pattern firing. It gives you distance.
Okay, so once you've identified the negative thought or pattern,
Yeah.
step 2 is crucial. Challenging it, questioning its validity. How do you effectively challenge a thought that feels so real and has been running for so long?
You challenge it with evidence. You bring your rational brain online. If the thought is, I always mess things up, you actively search for counter evidence.
Like, okay, wait, when did I not mess things up?
Yeah.
When did I handle something well? What did I learn from that time I struggled?
Exactly. You consciously gather data that contradicts the negative thought. This does two powerful things neurologically. One, it interrupts the firing of the negative circuit. You put the brakes on it.
Okay.
And two, it simultaneously activates other neural pathways, those associated with rational thinking, problem solving, self-efficacy, and memory recall of positive experiences. You're starving the old circuit while feeding a new, more realistic one.
Interrupt and activate. I like that. Okay,
Yeah.
so identify, challenge, and the final step connects back to what we discussed earlier, replacing the negative thought.
Yes. Replacing it with a more constructive, balanced, and rational belief. This isn't about Pollyanna-ish positivity. It's about accuracy and helpfulness.
So instead of, I'm going to fail this presentation, maybe replace it with.
Something like, okay, I'm feeling nervous, which is normal. I've prepared and I have valuable points to share. I can handle questions as they come. It's realistic, acknowledges the feeling, but focuses on capability and preparation.
And repeating this replacement thought, that's where the LTP comes back in for the new pathway.
Precisely. Every time you successfully identify, challenge, and replace a negative thought with a more constructive one, you are doing two things. You're weakening the old negative circuit through non-use, that LTD process again, and you are actively strengthening the new positive neural connection through repeated activation, LTP.
So it's a double whammy, weakening the old, strengthening the new with every successful cycle.
Exactly. This is the intersection of all three techniques. Awareness finds the target. Challenging weakens it. Replacement, repeated over time, builds the new structure.
And this isn't just about feeling better in the moment, is it? The sources link this to building resilience.
Absolutely. By consistently practicing cognitive restructuring, you're not just managing thoughts, you're changing the brain's default programming. You're building a stronger, faster, resilient circuit. So when future challenges or setbacks inevitably occur,
the brain is more likely to automatically access the constructive problem-solving pathway instead of defaulting to the old panic or despair circuit.
that's the long-term payoff. You build genuine mental and emotional resilience because you physically change the underlying neural architecture that handles stress and adversity. It's profound.
Okay, so pulling it all together, it's clear these three techniques aren't really separate things. They have to work together, don't they?
They're deeply integrated. Awareness is your diagnostic tool finding the faulty wiring. Positive self-talk and replacement thoughts are like the blueprints for the new wiring. And repetition, that's the construction crew, laying down the new pathways through consistent effort.
The neurological muscle needed for the rewiring via LTP.
Exactly. The combined power is where the real transformation happens. And again, we have to keep hammering this home. It all hinges on that sustained, intentional effort.
And consistency.
Consistency. The brain adapts, yes, but it needs convincing proof that this new way of thinking or behaving is important and here to stay. That proof comes only through repeated, dedicated practice. Without that,
the new connections might not stick. Those dendritic spines might retract.
right, the brain is efficient. It won't maintain infrastructure that isn't being regularly used. So sporadic effort might feel good temporarily, but consistent effort is what drives the actual physical, long-lasting change.
It's the difference between just like trying on a new behavior and actually installing it as a permanent upgrade.
Well said. So the commitment level is what bridges the gap between temporary modification and permanent neurological change. Plasticity is available, but you have to drive it.
So let's talk practical integration. How can someone listening start weaving these practices into daily life effectively based on the source material? What makes it stick?
The sources highlight a couple of really key strategies. One is goal setting, but making it specific and realistic.
Not just, I want to be happier.
No, too vague. If the big goal is, say, more self-compassion, you break it down. Set a daily, measurable goal that reinforces that pathway. Like, today at lunchtime, I will consciously notice one kind thing I did for myself or someone else. Or 3 times today, when I notice negative self-talk, I will challenge it and replace it with specific, compassionate phrase.
So you're turning the abstract goal into concrete, repeatable actions. The source material mentioned practicing gratitude daily as an example. How does that specifically reinforce positive pathways?
Gratitude practice, like writing down 3 specific things you're genuinely thankful for each day, is a targeted rep for the positive circuits. It does a few things. It forces your brain to scan for positives, counteracting negativity bias. It also activates brain regions associated with reward and well-being, releasing neurotransmitters like dopamine and serotonin. So by consistently linking positive feelings with that reflective act, you're strengthening those positive circuits both chemically and structurally. You're building a habit of positive focus.
Okay, so specific goal setting. What's the other key strategy mentioned?
Tracking. Keeping some kind of record, whether it's a simple journal, a note on your phone, or an app designed for this, monitoring your progress.
Why is tracking so important for the neuroplastic process itself? Is it just about motivation?
Motivation is part of it, but it's more direct than that neurologically. Tracking provides concrete positive feedback. When you look back and see, wow, I consistently challenged my anxious thoughts 5 times every day this week, or I practiced my affirmation routine for 30 days straight.
That reinforces the success itself.
Exactly. It reinforces the neural connections associated with making positive changes, being capable of effort, achieving goals. It creates this immediate positive feedback loop. Seeing the progress actually releases some of those same positive neurochemicals, which makes it easier to continue the repetition needed for further LTP. It fuels the engine.
That makes so much sense. It validates the effort neurologically. Okay, let's step back for a second. We started talking about mindset shifts, abstract ideas, and now we're talking calcium ions, glutamate receptors, dendritic spines growing.
It's incredible, isn't it? That old idea of the fixed adult brain is just gone, obsolete.
Totally.
We have these concrete, actionable tools: awareness to diagnose, self-talk and reframing to design the new structure, and consistent repetition to actually build it. The mind isn't just influencing the brain. The mind is actively directing the biological process of neuroplasticity.
Reshaping our own neural pathways for better cognitive function, better emotional regulation, better well-being overall.
Yes, that's the power here.
So wrapping this up, what does this all really mean for someone listening right now, maybe feeling inspired but also a bit daunted by the consistency required?
It means that feeling of resistance, that difficulty in maintaining the practice, that's not a sign of personal failure. It's neurological friction. It's the real effort of forging new paths against the pull of the old established ones.
But the power to overcome it is there.
It is, and it's found in that simple yet profound principle: directed repetition, sustained effort. If you maintain the consistency needed to trigger long-term potentiation, you are, quite literally, physically building a stronger, more resilient, more capable version of yourself. And looking ahead, the potential applications are huge. If we can consciously do this now with these techniques, imagine targeted mental practices for chronic pain, enhancing learning, aiding recovery from brain injury, all based on harnessing this fundamental capacity for change.
It really shifts the perspective. The power isn't some vague belief. It's in understanding the mechanism. That consistent effort, making those neurons fire together again and again, that's the accessible tool. That's how you customize your brain and ultimately your life's potential.
It brings personal responsibility down to a biological level in a way. You understand the inputs required for the desired neurological output. The challenge and the opportunity lies in delivering those inputs consistently. That's the bridge between temporary hope and lasting change.
Amazing stuff. Thank you for digging into these sources with me and explaining the science behind these powerful tools. Hopefully this gives everyone listening some really actionable, grounded steps to start building their own new brain architecture.